Welcome back to the Friday Five for January 5th, 2024. My name is Andrew Ayers. I'm a business law and estate planning attorney with offices in Edina, Minnesota, and New York City. It's our first Friday Five of the new year. We've got 5 questions in about 5 minutes, FAQ style, maybe things that have come up that you've wondered about in the past. Question number 1 this week: can I reinstate a dissolved LLC? In this case, the caller had an interesting question that their LLC had been dissolved and they actually didn't know about it. Apparently, the registered agent who they were paying for wasn't actually forwarding their legal mail that they were receiving from the state. So what had happened is apparently a payroll tax payment had been missed, so the LLC had been administratively dissolved. And the caller wanted to know if he could reinstate his LLC. Simple answer is yes. In most states, all you'll need to do is contact the people who say you owe them money, in this case, the payroll tax department, make your payroll tax payment, and then they give you either some kind of a confirmation or a clearance letter that you can then show to the state and reinstate your company. In this case, the LLC just needed to make the payroll payment and then a $25 reinstatement payment. So just because you get a notice that your LLC was administratively dissolved doesn't mean that you can't reinstate it. However, if there's been a judicial proceeding, meaning you've been through a lawsuit, and there's been formal court orders, you may not be able to reinstate your LLC, but that's a whole different and more in-depth topic about what happens when your LLC goes through a judicial dissolution. Question 2 this week: am I personally liable for LLC debts? Of course, this is one of the reasons why most people will set up an LLC, and that is that they don't want to be liable personally for the debts of their company. Especially if you're just starting out a company and you're leasing a property and you have other obligations of the company, you don't want to be pledging all of your personal assets, if you can avoid it, to be liable for these debts. So one of the main reasons we set up that LLC is so that the debts are not personally liable by the owners of the LLC, called the members. However, as you're starting out, some of those first documents you sign, you may see that these people who are lending you money or agreeing to lease your premises may ask you to sign a personal guarantee. If you sign a personal guarantee, then in that case, the answer is yes, you are going to be personally liable for that debt of the LLC because you've signed that extra document saying, I'm agreeing to be personally liable. If you haven't signed that personal guarantee and all the paperwork is solely in the name of your LLC, then chances are you are not going to be personally liable for that debt. Question 3 this week: should content creators set up an LLC? Now, this was actually a really fun discussion I had with someone who's got a growing online presence, and he and I were going through some of the different projects that he's working on and where things are going next. And his question was a pretty common one I get is, should I create that LLC? So the content creator is creating under a pseudonym, so he's not using his actual name when he creates videos and creates content online. And my recommendation was you should look into creating your content creator name LLC in the state where you're located as a good way to give you that extra layer of anonymity in the world. So you don't necessarily want your personal name on the content you create. I mean, I do because it's tied to my personal brand and my personal law firm, but a lot of people who create online don't use their own name. There can be other benefits with your LLC as far as running expenses. So if you have to buy new video equipment, you have to hire people to help you upload your videos, whatever content you're creating. Maybe you need a new website put together. You can run these expenses through your LLC because they are expenses of that LLC. They're professional expenses. So in this situation, we were recommending that an LLC be created at some point. And the other reason is because as that content grows, as the content creator becomes more famous, there's going to become more issues that come up. And being a sole proprietorship is fine, and all that's going to show up on your personal taxes. But taking that next level with the LLC was going to achieve the goals that he was looking to set. Question 4 this week: do I need a trust if I'm about to get remarried? So when you're dealing with what we call a blended family, which is 2 people getting married and at least one of them has children from a prior marriage, it's going to be a pretty common recommendation that we create a trust if we want to make sure that the children from prior marriages are going to inherit your estate if you die after you've been remarried. So in most states, what's going to happen is when you are married, your new spouse has a statutory right, meaning in your laws of your state, they have a right to a portion of your estate, regardless of your children from that prior marriage, regardless of any other family members who you want to inherit. Your spouse has certain rights as your spouse to inherit your estate. Now, one way we can make sure we protect that interest of your children is to create a trust, and the trust can specifically say these specific assets are owned by the trust and are held for the benefit of my children. Now, that doesn't mean you have to cut out your new spouse. In the case of the caller, what we're going to do is create a trust that actually has provisions for his prior children, and then also some provisions for his spouse. And we may add to the trust over the years. But the trust gives us that flexibility to make sure that we're not going to accidentally cut out the children from the prior marriage with the remarriage to a new spouse. Because, for example, if you die first and your spouse is remaining and your spouse is living in that house that you grew up in, well, the new spouse would likely be taking title to that property under operation of law, and in which case it wouldn't go to your children, it would go to your new spouse when you die. So we want to make sure we understand what's going on when we're getting remarried and whether or not the trust makes sense to protect our children or our family members from that prior marriage. And question 5 this week, does my personal representative need to be a U.S. citizen? This is an excellent question. Let's say you have family members or a personal representative who is currently overseas, and maybe they're not they're maybe not a United States citizen. And the question I get is, can somebody who's not physically in the United States be a personal representative? And the good news is in 2024 and beyond, a lot of our banking and a lot of our other transactions are done online. So it's a lot easier now to manage somebody's estate, even if you're not located in the state or even the country where you're administering the estate. Now, if you're in the United States, you do not have to be a U.S. citizen to be a personal representative. Now, the caveat and the asterisk I give on this one is apparently in Florida, there are certain rules about when non-citizens can be personal representatives. I'm not admitted in Florida, so I can't comment on that. However, in the states where I'm admitted, you can have a non-U.S. citizen be a personal representative under your estate. We normally want to make sure that person is at least semi-fluent in English or has a good connection with technology and can understand the U.S. laws and what's going to need to be done. But there is no rule that says you cannot have a non-U.S. citizen be the personal representative. So that's our 5 questions for the week. If you like this video, you can hit the thumbs up button or the like button below. You can subscribe for future episodes on YouTube. You can always submit a future question at the link below. And if you need more information about my firm or you want to set up a legal strategy session, you can go to my website, 𝙃𝙀𝙍𝙊𝙒. There's a little red button on the top of the page where you can set up a strategy session. And wherever you are, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's the first weekend in 2024.